All right, everybody, man. I got one of them smooth Chicago men on the channel. Watch out, he gonna glide on the floor. He gonna step on your mind with some consciousness of that city that I love. I like Chicago a lot. Everybody, y'all know I'm Anthony Brogdon, and y'all know I'm in the Detroit. But I like me some Chicago. I go over there and hang out. I do my stepping and my dancing, and I like seeing all that history. How about this? And I know he's going to address this in his conversation. Chicago was founded by a Black man. Watch out there, and we're going to, talk a little bit about that. Before I bring him on, though, I got to tell you, man, and ladies out there around the world who is watching me, there is some good things happening at Strong Inspirations. Some gooder than good things. My numbers is up. I thank you for my new subscribers that have come on lately. You know I got a goal of 5,000 subscribers. Before the end of the year, it's free to subscribe. Just hit the button. Let me know you like what I'm doing. How about this? You know by now I'm having my own festival. That's right, little old me. I'm not ordinary no more because I got people like this gentleman on my channel. They've elevated my mindset. I want 5,000 subscribers. I'm having my own festival in Quindaro, Kansas. If you don't know, look at the video on the channel. Them Black folks walked across the water when it froze from Missouri and ended up in Quindaro, and they told them guys, don't come over here because I ain't coming back. You're going to have a fight on your hands. You come across that river. And they left them alone, some of them. I'm sure there was some stories. I'm so intrigued with that. I'm having a toy drive December 4th in Quindaro. I want 100 people to meet me there, and we're going to donate some toys to the young good kids, and all of them good, that hang out at the Boys and Girls Club. And then May 27th through the 29th, I'm having this festival. I call it Freedom Quindaro. Come on down. We're going to party in a barn on Friday night, drink a little bit of moonshine, wear your dusty blue jeans. Saturday, we're going to tour that city, and I got all the museums. They're going to open up for us. And they're going to go, and we're going to hear the stories of what happened over in that town. And then we're going to have a picnic, and I got the people of the town cooking the food. You're going to talk about some cooking. We're going to have some of the best corn, the best ribs, the best chicken, the best hot dogs, hamburgers, and everything. It's all one price. You pay the price, and I can only get 1,000 people. I can only take 1,000 people, and we're going to rock that town. Watch me. I got good things happening on this channel, people. I want you to support me in my efforts in this regard. I got a movie out called Black Business in the Black. I'm sorry. My man's got me. He said he ready to go. Business in the Black is my movie. I need you to watch this. It's streaming on Amazon. The Rise of Black Business in America. I got this book out called Black Business Book. Over 200 facts. If you know everything in this book, I give your money back. Every 10th book I sell, I donate one to a school. This book is good. All the ways slaves gained their freedom. Man, the guy on the channel, he busy. He said, man, I got to go. I said, I got one more thing though. I use the word strong a lot, which stands for strength, tenacity, resilience, and a sense of oneness, nobility, and grace. That is my introduction to the guest. Sir, this strong man, introduce yourself. Let's get it on.
My name is Bernard Turner, and I'm the Executive Director of the Black Metropolis National Heritage Area Commission in Chicago. And that is an organization that's focused on helping Bronzeville, which is one of Chicago's neighborhoods, become a national heritage area. And for those of you who are not familiar with national heritage areas. They are historic areas, mainly in rural areas out in the country that focus on historical events, historical places, and historical cultures. Illinois has two other ones. One of them is the Illinois and Michigan Canal, and the other one is the Lincoln site. So you can understand the historical significance of Lincoln, his life, and his heritage in Illinois.
Okay, let me stop you. I got to do this though, my friend.
Sure.
This really. Are you from Chicago?
I'm a native Chicagoan, yes, born there.
You like Black history a lot.
I'm kind of a historian and storyteller and tour guide. So I do a lot of tours in Chicago, and I have also been a docent at the Chicago History Museum for about 20 years.
How did you get into wanting to do the tours?
I started doing the tours because I wanted to become an expert on something regarding Chicago history. So Chicago has a storied history, as you know.
Okay.
And I wanted to be an expert on one thing. And I chose this neighborhood called Bronzeville. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that.
And so Bronzeville is a very historic neighborhood, as I know, coming to Chicago. Let's go into the story and some of the things you show and what have you.
Well, when everyone thinks of Bronzeville, you think of the Great Migration. So over a period of about 50 years, 6 million African Americans fled the South. They came from Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, Arkansas, and all kinds of places to cities in the North, including Chicago, Detroit, Milwaukee, New York, and so forth.
Right.
Out of those 6 million, 600,000 just came to Chicago. 600,000 people came into a city and lived in a very, very tight neighborhood. They couldn't move to other neighborhoods because of what was called restrictive covenants.
Right.
And the restrictive covenants forbade white people from renting or selling to Blacks.
Right.
So they were kind of confined in this one neighborhood. They originally called it the Black Belt because it was very, very narrow. People couldn't move either way. The lake is on one side, other neighborhoods, kind of hostile neighborhoods, are on the other side. But they turned it into a Black metropolis.
Right.
And that's because so many businesses began, businesses like insurance companies, clothing stores, department stores, theaters, clubs, all of those kinds of businesses sprang up in Bronzeville to where it became a Black metropolis.
Let me ask you this. How did they come up with the name? Because there's a Bronzeville in some other cities too.
Mm-hmm. The Bronzeville here in Chicago is named for a beauty pageant. Actually, it was a beauty pageant which was sponsored by one of the newspapers called The Defender. And probably your people who are watching this are familiar with The Defender because it was distributed all over the country by the Pullman porters who went to the South. So they distributed this newspaper. They had a beauty pageant called Miss Bronze America. All the women in the beauty pageant, of course, were Black. So they started calling the neighborhood Bronzeville. So that's how the name came about.
Yeah. When you say it's narrow, how many streets? What's the area of Bronzeville?
It's really about 7 miles in length and about 3 miles in width. So if you think of a very kind of a narrow strip,
right,
it was originally a very small area. Chicago has 77 neighborhoods, but it's divided up into little parts. And this is one of them. So it was a very small area and people couldn't move to other places.
Was there something about the area that they said, okay, we'll let y'all live there? Was it something that made it, for lack of a better word, less desirable than other areas? You know what I mean?
Actually, it wasn't less desirable. It was very desirable. And it just was convenient. I think people knew people who lived there. It was one of those word of mouth things.
Okay.
So if I know that there's a newspaper there, this newspaper was the newspaper that was bringing all of the news about jobs and opportunities in Chicago. The newspaper was located in Bronzeville. So
Okay.
that was 1906 that the
Okay.
newspaper started. And they were taking these newspapers to the South
Right.
and they were telling them, here, read this newspaper, you'll find out about jobs, opportunities, places to live, places to work.
I got you.
And this is where you should come
Yeah.
when you come to Chicago. So that's the reason. I also wrote a book, which I forgot to bring down with me, called A View of Bronzeville,
Okay.
which tells you the whole history of that neighborhood.
Let me ask you this. One of the things that I noticed, and this also happened here in Detroit, it was called Black Bottom, which, you know, our neighborhood. But a
Right.
lot of the towns where they allowed the Black people, they were downtown. They were kind of centrally located. And,
Right.
you know, the one in Detroit, that was a good location. And
Absolutely.
what we use it for now, shoot, I want to live over there, you know, because
Yeah,
it's,
I
like
think
say, close to downtown.
it's kind of near where the casinos are and some of
Yeah, yeah, sure, sure.
the little fancy restaurants. But you think the difference between Black Bottom and Bronzeville's not exactly right downtown. It's a little bit south of downtown,
Right,
but very close to the lake.
right.
Very important, very valuable land around there. And they didn't come through and, you know, put in all those expressways like they did in Detroit
I was going to
and
ask you
tear
that.
everything down. Like in Detroit, they tore all those places down,
Right,
put the expressways in there. They used eminent domain and bought
right.
people's homes and all of that. In Chicago, there was so many African-American businesses and so many neighborhood churches that had been synagogues, for example, that Blacks bought and turned into Baptist churches, so much there that they couldn't, you know, they couldn't demolish it.
Oh,
And it was a Black metropolis and it continues to be one.
uh, at the high point, how many people would they estimate lived in the Bronzeville area?
Well, starting like maybe around 1910, there were maybe 300 people there. But as I said, over a period of 40 years, 600,000 came just to Chicago.
Yeah.
So probably within that neighborhood, maybe 200,000 or 300,000 people.
Oh,
It was
okay.
very crowded.
And I guess over time, before gentrification came in, it did expand out and still be called Bronzeville, or they just kind of kept that title,
Well,
parameters.
a lot of people don't, you know, that's kind of a nickname for the neighborhood. It's not really
Yeah,
the name of it. It's kind of, you know, we just call it Bronzeville, but it's Douglas and Grand Boulevard. So we have a community area with these smaller little neighborhoods in it. And it's very, like you said, it's becoming more gentrified, but
yeah,
it's still pretty self-contained.
yeah.
When you think of all the landmarks that are there are all kinds of landmarks that are there from these businesses, the churches, you know, the gospel music began there. All of the jazz musicians who came from the South, Louis Armstrong there, played there. Mahalia Jackson came from New Orleans and she sang there. So
Now hold on, let me stop you
it
there. When
was
you said she sang there, was there a particular theater that was in Bronzeville?
there were tons of them. And when I think of when I was young, you could walk out on the street and just hear jazz and blues and, you know, all kinds of music, just walking around in the street. So there were all these clubs, theaters, places for people to party. And it was just a really unbelievable place to live.
What street did most of them was the main street of Bronzeville?
the main street probably would have been State Street.
Okay,
So when you think of the main street of Chicago
right,
that runs through downtown, that's State Street.
right.
So 35th and State around in there. 47th Street was another one important street. And then the street that's now named King Drive.
Okay.
Mhm.
What are some of the more noted businesses? You know, what's the names of them? Like, what's the name of the theater?
Well, one of the theaters was called the Regal Theater.
Okay,
And if you think of the Regal Theater, you think of any of the jazz musicians who came there, the Terrace Cafe, Regal Theater, the Plantation. These were some of the clubs that were there. Some of the businesses were the Supreme Life Insurance Company, John Johnson, actually, who started Johnson Publishing Company. He worked for the Supreme Life Insurance Company, and then
okay.
he went on to found Johnson Publishing Company. So all of those kind of businesses were there. Parker House Sausage, Baldwin Ice Cream,
Okay.
all of anything that you would find in
What
greater Chicago.
what was Binga's Bank?
Binga Bank, well, was one of the banks that was there, Douglas Bank, and so forth.
Yeah. Now, why did people, I know, I understand why they moved to Detroit because of automobile engine, but why did they move to Chicago? And what was the draw for the big employers?
The big employers were manufacturing, steel manufacturing,
Oh, really?
and the stockyards, the Union stockyards. Those were the big ones. The Union stockyards, there were a lot of automobile companies. There's even a street, they call it Motor Row, where there were just all these different automobile, not manufacturers, but retail, repair, and all of that, right
Okay.
in Motor Row.
Now,
So
Chicago, has Chicago had a riot? Was it? I'm like almost cities did, but was there a riot? And did that riot happen in Bronzeville or somewhere else?
it happened in Bronzeville, over on the lakefront. This was the 1919 race riot, and it happened over on the beach where they had a certain place where Blacks could swim, and they had a certain place where Blacks could not swim. And it just so happened that this one boy, Eugene Williams, who was on a raft, floated into the wrong area. And the white people on the beach threw rocks at him. And that's what started a riot that lasted about 2 days. And about 38 Blacks were killed. Maybe 12 or 14 whites were killed. And a lot of people, their property was destroyed. And it was really, really a very bad scene.
Did they have one in the 60s like they did here in Detroit?
They had one in the 60s, right after King was assassinated. There were riots, but that took place all over the country
Yeah, sure.
in many areas, around the country.
Now, Chicago, was Harold Washington the first Black mayor?
Harold Washington was the first Black mayor. He was elected in, I think, 83. And he was reelected, but he had a heart attack
Yeah,
in 87,
yeah,
just after he was reelected.
yeah. I
But
remember
yes,
that
he was the
story.
first Black mayor. And now, of course, we have a Black woman
Yeah,
mayor,
yeah,
Lori Lightfoot.
right. Now,
And
did
she's
Chicago, in the Bronzeville area, when they were able to move, what was the next place that Blacks were moving in some numbers? What's the name of that neighborhood?
my family lived in Bronzeville when I was very young. And after the restrictive covenants were found to be unconstitutional, my family moved to Chatham. So some families moved to Chatham, some people moved to Park Manor, South Shore, Hyde Park, surrounding neighborhoods.
Is Chatham a city or Chatham is a neighborhood?
Chatham is what we call a community area.
Okay, okay.
And it's pretty much all Black. But all of these community areas that I'm talking about were white before the Great Migration.
Yeah, right. Now, there's been a number of things that have come through Chicago. One in particular was the Black Panthers. They had a real a staunch leader, Fred Hampton.
Mhm.
And the reason why I know this is because I interviewed his attorney.
Okay.
He's on the channel. Was Fred Hampton in Bronzeville? Was it?
Fred Hampton actually lived in Maywood. So that was the western, like a western suburb, a little bit west of the city. And the Black Panthers offices were on the west side. So that wasn't in Bronzeville. And when I think of the Great Migration, the initial migration was to this neighborhood we're calling Bronzeville. The second bunch of people, the second wave, they went to the west side. You know, they went and lived over on the west side. But this was because of, you know, people were abandoning the neighborhoods. The Jewish people that lived in Bronzeville moved, and African-American people migrated there. And the same thing happened on the west side.
Were you around during the Black Panthers time?
I was, believe it or not.
Did you become a Panther?
No, I guess you call me, I'm too much of a nerd for that sort of thing.
Okay. But then there's an elaborate story, I don't know if you know it, of how they killed him. One and maybe a couple of his cohorts.
Right. There's a really good movie that people should look up about that. It was just out last year. I would recommend
right, The Black Messiah.
Right, very good movie.
Well, are there other riots or any of that racial tension that happened in Chicago that made national news? Were there protests, so on and so forth?
The protests, I'm thinking of Martin Luther King when, you know, after he did a lot of the work that he did in the South, one of the target places that he came was Chicago. And what the issue was in Chicago was open housing. And so he had staged a couple of marches in Chicago for open housing and for improved housing conditions. And it was a political situation because a lot of the people who were politicians, preachers, you know, ministers, did not think that he would be good for Chicago. And they opposed his coming here. But King came here anyway. And when you think of who did he work with? He worked with Jesse Jackson. He worked with Al Raby. He worked with other people that you've heard of nationally here in Chicago to organize those marches. And a couple of the marches were in Gage Park, which is an all-white neighborhood. And when he was marching through there, he was hit with rocks and knocked down.
Really?
But he continued to do that. But there was a lot of political problems here because some of the pastors did not want him to come here. Some of the politicians like Ralph Metcalf, the athlete, did not want him to come here. But he came anyway.
Okay, well, let me stop you right there. Sometimes I do that. What do you think their rationale for not wanting him there? That he was going to stir things up and they could just settle for how it was? Or what do you?
I think that they felt that he was an outsider and they felt that they knew what the problems were. And they probably felt that they could solve it better than he could. But there was no way they were going to get that kind of attention to the issue that Martin Luther King got, number one. And number two, don't you think that they were probably politically aligned with the powers that be? You know, they weren't rebels. They weren't trying to do anything different.
I got you.
So they didn't think that he was going to be effective, but he brought a lot of attention to Chicago and some of the issues that we had.
Okay. I got just a couple more questions, if you don't mind. Chicago was known, and I'm switching gears just a little bit in this one. Chicago was known as a big mafia town for a number of years. How did that mafia, let's say, influence work with the Black people in Bronzeville or wherever they were at the time?
Well, the mafia people in that era is something that I don't talk about too much, but I'll talk about it in a positive sense. The clubs and the nightclubs that I was talking about, some of them were speakeasies. You know, you think about back in the 1920s and, you know, before Prohibition was over, who were the people who were able to get liquor brought to some of these speakeasies that were in Chicago? A couple of them that were in Bronzeville as well, you know, not just on the north side or in the west side. And, you know, some of those mobsters or, you know, Al Capone types were able to get the business and get the liquor and so forth. So, you know, just like anything else, people do things according to what's going to put money in their pocket, you know, and what's going to further their business. So in a sense, it was business as usual, you know?
Okay. So there wasn't necessarily known to be battles between the two.
No.
I
When I think of the speakeasies, I'm talking about places where Blacks were going to party and
yes,
to drink, and where whites also came.
yes.
So they had these clubs they used to call Black and Tans. So Black and Tan meant white people and Black people
Okay.
there, and some of them were run by mobsters.
Oh, I got you. I got you.
Yeah.
Chicago is known for a couple of things. I don't know if this is any from a Black perspective. They're known for the hot dogs,
right?
You know, the popcorn. Is there some other defining moments, defining characteristics from a Black history perspective of Chicago?
Well, I would say I'm sure people will tell you, you know, every region has got its barbecue, right? If you go to Memphis, for example, they have their type of barbecue. You go to North Carolina, they have their type of barbecue.
Okay.
Well, we got ours too. You know, those barbecue grills that they make in those cans,
right?
Those big barrel cans,
right?
And they smoke them. You know, they
right.
have the smokers,
right?
So that's, you know, a Chicago thing, a Chicago barbecue type, and that's something that we're known for,
right?
As well as, you know, as well as deep dish pizza,
right?
And the Chicago style hot dog, and the popcorn, Garrett's popcorn.
Yeah, right.
Everybody has to get Garrett's popcorn when they come to Chicago.
Yeah.
A Chicago style hot dog.
Yeah.
And some deep dish pizza.
Yeah.
But I tell
exactly
you,
right.
We'll get you some barbecue on the south side.
Yes.
That's another thing.
Yes, you're exactly right. As we kind of come to a close, is there a question that I have not asked you that, you know, kind of come to mind? And how do people find, you know, about your tour company, website, things like that?
My website is highlightsofchicago.com. Highlightsofchicago.com. My name is Bernard Turner, and you can go there and look up the tours and look up the books. And the main thing that I want people to know is that we are trying to make this neighborhood a national heritage area, which is going to be fantastic because of all the history and all of the businesses that were there and that are still there, and all the stories yet to be told.
Yeah. So when you say you're trying to do it, what's part of the procedure? You have to apply to the federal government?
There's an act of Congress, there's Senate Bill 511, and there's a Congressional Bill 670 that are being considered right now. So we just need people to support it and people to tell their congressmen to stand behind us and try to get this done.
Oh, okay. Well, and I know you're a part of that team making it happen.
Yeah.
I'm sure under that, it won't be long now.
Well, we're working
Yeah,
on
we
it.
got the man on the channel. Hey, I really thank you for coming on
It's my
and sharing
pleasure.
some Chicago history with us, and doing what you do with the tours and keeping it alive. And so you an expert, man. You good at this. You found your niche. You said
Right,
you wanted to, and you did. You've been doing it a bunch of years.
right.
And so we, man, it's all good.
All right.
Everybody, this is what I do with strong inspirations. I find these strong guys, these smooth dudes who they knowledgeable, they experts. They know what they're talking about. I try to come up with a few questions and let them roll with it. And so, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button on this video, because I know he done told you something you did not know. Like this video, hit the notifications bell so when the videos come up. And if you've been watching me, I'm doing 5-6 videos a week. I'm keeping this thing turning, and it's gone international. Tell somebody about strong inspirations. Go and go to High Life of Chicago. Is that the name of it?
Highlightsofchicago.com.
High Life of Chicago. Go check him out. Go to Chicago. It's not as cold as it used to be. That the hawk is still around, though, right? That
The
hawk
hawk is
still
still
come
around.
through.
The hawk is still around.
The hawk is still around. They not as bad as it used to be with the global warmings and all that other stuff. And so you can go year round.
Yep.
But if you go in the winter, put that mink coat on. You got that mink you ready to wear. That's where you wear it in Chicago. And so thank you, my brother, for being on the channel, for my
Thank you
viewers
for
for watching
inviting me.
this. And I want to say to you this with all sincerity. I want you to stay strong, stay safe, stay on your grind. I love what you're doing, that you follow through on this mission. And
Thank
you
you, sir.
educating them people and let them know of this rich history that's come through your neighborhood. And so I say that congratulations on that. And everybody, I'll say this, bye-bye, we out.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Have a good one.